So the title of this talk is Sequential Commitment Games. Most of it will be about joint work with my good colleagues and friends from the Technion, Itay Ariel and Yaakov Lopichenko. But this is Noga's birthday. And I didn't know whether to embarrass him or not, but the organizers don't know what is the time that they've chosen it. Today is Thursday afternoon. So I have to tell you something about my connection with Noga. It will not be long. About 2008, in the middle of 2008, I was called into a mission to start some basic research activity in Microsoft in Israel, where the basic idea was we weren't part of Microsoft Research. It's like a startup that will become part of Microsoft Research. And the guy that brought me on board, Moshe Lichtman, said, oh, this will be easy. But then it turns out, first of all, that it took 3 years and more to become part of Microsoft Research, reporting to Jennifer over here. And my sabbatical turned out to be 6 years. And the way that we started to do that was by bringing on board, we didn't have almost any resources. So I got one person, basically, and then I say I can split this headcount into 5 people, intern, postdoc, whatever. I'll also bring some famous researchers. And one of the guys that we approached to start with was Noga. And this is the first interaction that we had in June 2008, that Noga, that I knew a little bit about him, to say, I'll not tell you all of his name, I would like to drop by for a brief visit on Thursday. So Noga came on Thursday, and then he joined us. I'll tell you basically what happened after that. Noga came, and I still remember the first day, Noga, that you came to the next office, where it was only me and an intern, and asking, so what are we doing here? So, means which kind of research? And then Noga became like another area, which is the connection between computer science and game theory. And I guess that this was one of my main contribution to the area, is bringing Noga also to the area. So to make a long story short, so it became that Noga's default day for many years from then, I think still now, at least in the 6 years that I was there, was Thursday. So I got used really to seeing Noga every Thursday. And there were 2 main events. One of them already was reported. First main event is lunch. This is one of Noga's favorite restaurants. And then basically afternoon that was spent talking about everything. That was every Thursday has been ended very late in the evening, basically in this building, and a lot of joint work, really remarkable work and a lot of very good memories. And it took for a long time. This was a major event, at least for me. And what happened for me personally, after 6 years, after 3 years, we made this exit, which will be part of MSR. You'll not look at the slide. Jennifer will recognize these slides. After 3 years, a lot of success. But for me, after 6 years, it ended. And Thursday afternoon became very boring. So, and I'm serious here. You can ask my wife, in a sense. After 6 years, things became, I'm only 1 year out of Microsoft. And not get into this, but basically, when I looked at the schedule, I realized that today is Thursday. And afternoon. And in a sense, what could I say? And basically, Noga knows my work in the last 6 years before that, and during the 6 years, he knew also about it as well. So basically, I decided to report to Noga about one of the work that I think can be exciting or lead to interesting problems. So it will be about this particular work. You're all invited to stay. So this is the idea of this talk. All of this work try to connect issues that are basically connect some combinatorial constructs to something that I believe is fundamental in the social sciences. In particular, what appears here is a very famous book by Nobel Prize recipient Thomas Schelling, that his work hasn't been formalized mathematically that much as the popular work. I really believe in his work, and this is connecting to his work in a new work, so this is not a very ancient kind of work, it's a new one, and I think we already have some interesting results, so I'll talk about the results, and the most important part it will be to have some open problems to you, basically towards the end. In my area, because we are not great problem solvers, we always have agendas. So at the end, I'll tell you about the big agenda that, if we have time, of all of this. But I like to focus on that well-defined problem that we'll address today. So as I mentioned, the good thing that I'll say are joint work with my colleagues Itai Arieli and Yakov Babichenko. The stupid things are that will be mine. So we'll start with the motivation, which really tells you much about game theory, basically. We'll not use a lot of game theories. It will be very simple constructs. So here is a story, perhaps the most classical one that you find in game theory, where you have two coalition parties. Think about two players or two coalition parties. This is an example from Israel that can be taken very easily, that need to pass two laws. There are two laws to be passed in the parliament, and there are two parties where basically the first party really likes law 2 to pass and slightly prefer that law 1 will fail, and the other one for the other party, the other direction. So basically, they are voted in order, law 1 and then law 2. So if you look at this is depicted here in something that's just that you will know the names. This is all not something very complicated. This is called a game tree or a game in extensive form. So we have basically what you care about is what party won, whether it will support law 1 or not. You assume that the other party will support it. So this is needed in order for this law to pass. And then you care whether party 2 will support this law, the second law. And these are the results. How much party 1 likes it and how much party 2 likes the result. So, for example, if law 2 will pass and law 1 will fail, then party 2 will be very happy and party 1 will be very sad. So it's a very simple situation. Those of you that know and how we solve this kind of thing, this is the reason that this is a very simple set of games. This is the solution, which has a nice name. It's called subgame perfect equilibrium. It's just backward induction. So you assume you'll go from the leaves, and basically you ask, what is the best action that one can take? And you propagate it upwards. So that's all. This is the solution of this game. So those of you that know even high school kind of lectures on game theory can recognize this game. This is just the extensive form prisoner's dilemma. So we make it even extensive form, how you argue that's in moving parallel and what happens. So if you look at this only subgame perfect equilibrium of this game, you get that both of the parties basically will vote against the law, and they'll get a result which is not as good, because there is this result here, which Pareto dominates this result. So it's better for both of the players. And if you ask me honestly, after many, many, many years in this intersection between game theory and other areas, if we need to study, one kind of puzzle that you need to say, what is the subject about? You say, okay, what happens here? So we get Pareto dominated, something which is not Pareto optimal, as a result of very simple situation. What can we do? And in fact, this talk will be about what can we do. So it's the puzzle, the problem is simple, the puzzle is very big. So non-Pareto optimal result is subgame perfect equilibrium, and What we focus on now today, and we do it without any motivation, but I start by example, and then there will be very, very careful definition, is by the value of voluntary commitments and what I call voluntary unconditional commitments in this situation. So just imagine the following simple situation where we are asked the players to commit to something. If they commit, it's irreversible, and they commit in some order. So if you go, for example, to the first player, or the second player in our case, and say, oh, can you commit that if you are going to vote for the second law, you'll support it, then you'll do that. So if he makes this commitment, then the game is translated into this game, and in this game, the sub-imperfect equilibrium will be that they'll do the right thing, in a sense. So it'll be sub-imperfect equilibrium. Things become interesting because this doesn't always work. Because if you look, for example, in this game, and you ask the players to commit, for example, first, the player in the root need to decide whether to commit and to what to commit, I'll not do it to the case analysis, then it will end basically to commit to go here. You can do the case analysis, but what will happen here is that if you commit to go here, we'll get something here, which is, again, Pareto dominated. On the other hand, if the order will be different, so this will be what will happen, but if the order will be different, for example, this order, that first this node that's to commit, and then this node to commit, and this node to commit, then you'll get as a result, which should be defined, what is the result here of what? Of some new kind of game, you'll get this output. So just vaguely speaking, what we have in mind here is there is some game to be played, and then we'd like to have, before the game, some interaction, but in this interaction, the players should still behave very rationally, in a sense, as in the game, and is a magic, we'd like that something good will happen as far as the payoff. So,
can you explain that example? Why doesn't player one commit to go to the right?
Why?
Oh, because
the commitments are. We give an ordering on the vertices, and if here the order is of order n 1, 2, and 3, if this guy need to commit here, so we can just commit to go here, and in a sense force this kind of result, which in a sense will be good in this situation. We'll get something which is Pareto optimal. Everything will be well defined, I think. So what is the main goal? The main goal is very, I'll call it ambitious to start with, at least it looked to us. We consider the class of protocols that is defined by order over the decision nodes. And our main goal is to study conditions under which Pareto efficiency can be guaranteed in sub-imperfect equilibrium independent of the payoff function of the game. So we'd like to have a magic to happen. You know, we see the situation, we don't know what is the payoff structure, and I say, okay, there is some ordering on these decision nodes. Go and commit in this order. Everyone can hear the other kind of thing. This creates a new game. At the end, what you didn't commit to, you can play whatever you want. In other places, you should play whatever you committed to. And we'd like that by magic, something good will happen, regardless of the payoff structure. So for every payoff structure, the games know the payoff structure, and they like that something good will happen. So honestly, we talk about related literature. It's surprising how little literature there is. Of course, there is Schelling Nobel Prize work, which is not mathematical, which really advocates the notion of credible commitments and mediators, things that are very close to my heart for many years. But in a sense, the mathematical theory, which is very rich in game theory, didn't take Schelling track. And there are some sporadic work that has been done on commitments and mediators during the years, but in a sense, no general work, at least, on sequential commitments, and we are after voluntary, unconditional, sequential commitments. So you can decide to commit or not to commit. It's not that I commit as a function of what you do. I commit. If I ask what to commit, I should say I don't commit in this node or I commit to a particular action. So let's have some formal definition in order just the problem should be clear because there are many open problems at end. So, but I'll tell you of course about results, but I'd like that the setting will be clear. So I'll go with all of the basic definition of the framework. So we have what is called an extensive form game, where we have a set of players n, and there is a tree, where we have two types of nodes, the decision nodes and the terminal nodes, which determine the payoffs, right? And there are the edges of this tree, and basically there is a labeling of the nodes to say who should act at each particular node. Of course, a player can act in various places in the tree. And we can look at, for player I, at a set of nodes which belong to it, and there is a payoff function, which is just for any terminal nodes, tell us what is the payoff for each agent. Now, just for not to cheat you in this talk, for simplicity, I'll state the result, what is called generic games. It's just in order to when I refer to things that will be unique. It basically says that in two terminal, a game is generic if in two terminal nodes where the utility for player I is the same in both these nodes, then the same is for the payoffs for each agent. This will be technical, but in a sense it allows you, otherwise if you do the backward induction, the value will not be unique. You will have 5 here and 5 here, and we'd like to just to say you go there. It's just in order that we can talk about things which are unique. And this is the classical definition of Pareto dominance. So that's all that we need here. And now comes the new construct, which says the following. A sequential commitment game, add to the game simply an ordering over the decision nodes. And now the game runs in 2 stages. A commitment stage, where basically every player is invited to commit to an action at its node. So it's now the node of the first node. Then it says, I don't like to commit, or I commit to a particular action. Everyone hears this. And then the next guy to move is someone that hears this and needs to decide what to do. And commitments are public and irreversible and optional. And now, basically, this is formally it's function like that. And in the play stage, you have the commitments, and basically, you play the original game while you are subject to the commitments that you made before. And this is basically the central notion that we call it in game theory implementation. It says the following. Let the value of the commitment game G and V bar, so there is a notion now, a game and an ordering over the nodes, be the outcome of the commitment game with order V bar. So there is the value in a subgame perfect equilibrium. It's well defined. There is a value. And now we say that basically Pareto efficiency is implementable for the game structure entity. So there's a player, a game tree, and labeling of the decision nodes. And we say if there exists an order such that every generic game, if you add the utility structure, the subgame perfect equilibrium outcome is Pareto efficient. So we'd like to say, oh, can we just make this ordering and thing will become Pareto efficient. So that's what the implementation problem that we are after, which we are expecting to get, to be honest, some negative results. Why? Because the game theory literature is full with negative results. That basically tell you, oh, in a very simple games, if you, for example, allow various kind of simultaneous commitments, then, no hope. And I like what I don't know how time I have, I didn't even look at, but I'd like to share with you basically two results that we had, see how much we get. That the first one was, at least to us, was quite striking, which says that Pareto efficiency is implementable in every two-player game structure. Let me be more specific in order at least to state the result. I'll tell you that the order is any DFS order. So just to restate DFS order in our terminology, that just will not refer to something, just to introduce some notation. If we look at an ordering V bar, so it's called a depth first search order if in every node Vi, it appears in V bar precisely after all of its descendants. So this is just the meaning of DFS order in this simple structure. So now we can state the theorem that says that for every generic two-player extensive form game and every DFS order, V bar, the unique subgame perfect equilibrium outcome of the commitment game is Pareto efficient. So if you have this puzzle that includes the prisoner's dilemma and many, many others, the centipede games, whatever, a lot of work, and you still buy the same rational, it's closed under the rationality assumption. It says that just you can make commitments, even it's not need to be conditional or whatever, you'll get this Pareto, to get to the Pareto optimal outcome. So I'd like to show you without the idea of this proof. I'll skip the two main lemmas, but I'd like just to share with you that, because then there will be a lot of questions. So the proof outline is as follows. First of all, if you consider what you call the action commitment game, which is just the same game, but where each agent is forced to commit to particular action. So as in the context of a DFS order, or in fact for every pre-terminal order, the value that you'll obtain if you are in the action commitment game is like the value that you'll get in the commitment game. It's simple to prove. So in a sense, we can assume, without loss of generality, that people commit in their nodes for this particular result, of course. And now, we do the following thought experiment. Think about the DFS order as some ordering over the non-terminal, basically, over the non-terminal sons, basically, of the root. And basically, you can look at the ideas, at the game as playing as follows. Think about it, just conceptually thinking, as the player play first the first subtree, TW1, of one of the non-terminal sons, does the commitment game there, some value is propagated to the top, and then you play on the rest of the game, on T minus TW1. This is a way of thinking about this kind of game. So there is a sense, a value that is propagated to the top through these commitments. Now, the heart of this is the following. We define two games as follows. One of them will be a bit tricky. First, we define a commitment game, G tilde of X, on the nodes of T minus TW1, where basically we say, let's assume that we replace all of TW1 by the outcome X. And then we define something more tricky, which is a game G bar, that basically is defined on TW1, where basically we replace the value of every outcome, X, with what we'll get as a result of assuming that X is in the top, and look at G tilde of X. So let's look at the picture of that. If this is the game G, so G tilde of X just may say we replace TW1 by X. And basically here, if there are two leaves B and C, and we can put P to the top and propagate, and C to the top and propagate, so this will create R and B and R and C. So if you replace R and B is what is called, is what we got in G tilde of B, and R of C is what we got in G tilde of C, this will be the game G bar. So it's the TW1 with with the leaves basically replaced by this value. I hope this is clear. Yossi, how much time I have, basically?
20 more minutes.
20 minutes. Okay. So I'll just state the two main lemmas that will help us, and then, so the first lemma says that the value of the action commitment, commitment game G bar is exactly like the value of the action commitment game G. What I mean by that, just to wave my hands, of course this requires proof, this is one of the main proof lemmas here, there are several ones. It basically you in a sense simulate a situation where any leaf value will propagate to the top, and say what will happen if this will propagate to the top, and put a leaf with this number. If it was B, now it's R of B. Do the same for C, do the same for everything, and then play on this game, and it turns out that the value that you'll get in this game is as in the original game. So this is the first lemma. The second lemma, which is the central lemma basically to the proof of two-person games, everything looks very simple in a sense, but then you'll see in a minute I'll show you something that shows that it's perhaps not as simple. Because, for example, this simple thing is called exactly just for two-person games. It's called the substitution lemma, and it tells you the following. Let G be a game such that it has in the root something which is one terminal node sun, at least one terminal node sun. And we go in particular order, V1 up to Vn, and we look at some pre-terminal order, and then basically we get that the value of the commitment game is not Pareto optimal. There is some value C, which is better for both players than what you got. Then what this lemma tells you, then instead of this terminal node T, just offer the guy, if you would have been offered the value C, what you get in this is something which Pareto dominates C. So we say, look, you played you played this commitment game. You got something which Pareto dominated by some C. So if you would be offered the players this C, the result that what you'll get will be even better than C because you got it as an offer. This one? No, the line before that. Oh, so I use the notation that C is the vector C1 and C2 here. Okay? So you offer, I offer this C1 and C2, and you get, okay. So this is called the substitution lemma. And which look naive. And now we return, assuming that, believe me on this kind of thing, if it looks simple, that's great. So let's return to the proof outline. So we do some simple induction now on the number of decision nodes. But this will be not bottom-up, it looks different. Clearly, for n equals 1, everything works. But now assume that the value of the action commitment game is Pareto efficient for every game with less than n nodes. And we'll prove it for games with n nodes. So what's going on here? Assume that the value that propagated in TW1 in this first tree is B. So I can write the following equation. The value of the action commitment G hat is the value of the action commitment G, this is lemma A, which is the value of the action commitment G tilde with this value B, which is just R of B. This is the result that will happen if you apply the commitment game which B is in the top. And this inequality is just a matter of lemma A and our notations. So both G hat and G bar are games which are strictly smaller than G. So assume by way of contradiction that the value of the action commitment game G, R of B, is Pareto dominated by the value C. So there are two cases. One is a bit more tricky. This is case 1. So let's assume that the outcome C is in TW1, in the first tree. So if we look at the action commitment game G bar, remember the ones that we have there is R of B and R of C as leaves, then we already know that the value of the action commitment G bar is R of B. What we'll get, the result of the game is R of B. And this now, because of the substitution lemma, what the substitution lemma tells us? That if C dominates R of B, then you can replace C, you can put C on the top, and basically you get something which Pareto dominates the result that you get R of B. But just by definition, what you propagate to the top C is R of C, so you get basically a contradiction to the fact that you have a Pareto optimal outcome in G bar. And similar kind of reasoning holds for G tilde. So I wave my hands a lot, but in a sense, this, after we have these two lemmas, basically tell us the story that you have these positive results for two persons. So the question is, can we implement this kind of thing in general? So and this is an important slide to me because it will show you the kind of thing that we work on where we don't say, okay, we have this lemma and the other lemma. This will be an example of the kind of reasoning that is hidden here. So we have here 4 players game. In Romance, you have the players, and here is just a DFS order. What I'd like to show you is the DFS order doesn't work, for example, for this game of 4 players. So these are the payoffs that are written here. And look at this player 3. So please, player 3 is scared to death. I'm just waving my hands now. It requires a proof, but I'd like to give you the intuition from this -3. So basically, he's afraid that player 4 will play this. So basically he says, look, player 4, if you'll commit in a sense to go here, then I'll commit basically to go there. And basically this will be bad for the two of us. So how we can enforce this? Assume that player 3 is moving here and say, okay, here I'll do these stupid things of 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Now, he has a credible threat. He basically says, look, if you go here, I'll go there, and player 2 and 1 will be happy to do that. Player 1 will go here. He doesn't like to get this 1, 1, 1. And player 2 also will go there, and this is a credible threat. But if this guy would do the reasonable thing, so what will happen here? We'll get this 1, 1, 1, 1. But if this guy, stay with me, try to stay with this one, say, I'll do this natural thing of 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. What happens now? Player 2, will not go here. Why will not go here? Assuming that this guy say, I'll do 4, 4, 3 minus 4, and this guy say, okay, if you go here, I'll do 2, 5 minus 2 minus 2. So now player 1 that can get here all of these 3s, basically can say, look, I'll not go here because 2 is too small for me. So in this case, player 2 knows that player 1 will not be satisfied with these 2, so he will go here, and basically our player lose all of his threat, basically, because he knows that the moment he decides to commit to 3, 3, 3, then no longer he can basically have this threat. So quite tricky kind of considerations that basically leads you to saying that the only outcome of this will be 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So this kind of reasoning gets more and more complicated, and this is the theorem, the second theorem that I like to report on, that says the following. There exists a 4-player or 4 and more players extensive form game structure such that for every order V bar that you'll give me, I can give you a payoff structure such that the subgame perfect equilibrium of it will be Pareto dominated. So I don't know the result for 3, but if you give me 4 and more, there is a very general impossibility result. So we'll not have time to go over this, but basically it's, let me skip. But at the end, it gives you that you cannot, for 4 players more, there is a general impossibility result. There are still quite a few positive results hidden. For example, we really wanted to solve things like the centipede games. More generally, we have quitting games. Quitting games, as they are sound, are games that you either move to the second, you move the token to the next round, or you just take your payoff. So it can be with n players, general quitting games. And it turns out that for general quitting games, there is a positive result for every quitting game. G, the DFS order basically leads to Pareto efficiency. In general, for any Pareto game, the value of the commitment game G is Pareto efficient. So I moved quickly, basically mostly in order to tell you about these open problems. So where we are standing, we have this general notion of basically saying we have a general extensive form game, and now we have something that basically tells us, look at commitment that are optionals. Let the people try to commit. We have a mediator that can enforce their commitments. Now, all that they can commit to particular, either they like to commit or not like to commit. And we have 2 results that, first of all, now look to us strikingly positive. For the 2-player games, arbitrary games, we can do that. The mediator doesn't need to know anything about the game. And we have a negative result saying that for 4-player and more, we cannot do that. But in the last year at least, we are stuck with the following. One thing that I even didn't tell you is, can you do something more than that if you know the payoff structure? Let's assume that I know the payoff structure. What I'm telling you is a positive result, as a negative result. Both of them hold in general when I don't know the payoff structure. Can I have something positive to say if I know the payoff structure beyond what I can do without knowing the payoff structure? This is one problem. The second problem that we've been looking at quite extensively is, let's assume that the ordering is history dependent, just the ordering. Say, I can hear what the people say, and based on it, perhaps the order will change. So it's not oblivious. And can this lead us to something different? Here we have the conjecture that it cannot, but this is another open problem. And can we characterize the orders that implement Pareto-efficient outcomes? What happens with 3 players? Complexity? In fact, there are many, many open problems. And I'd still like to say something about the more general agenda, but as in almost final conclusion, I'd like to say that what I wanted to present here is, I guess that this is, at least for us, this is a new playground that connects the analysis of game trees with the challenging of implementing Pareto-efficient outcomes through commitments. So the idea is basically now, if you can find a way to order things based on payoffs, based on structure of the game, anything about the game tree that you commit, that can characterize, that will lead to Pareto-efficient outcome, basically it will be at least of some theoretical interest, but maybe also of some practical interest. So my main objective was to bring it to you, this kind of thing. But if I have like 3-4 more minutes, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the more general agenda that we have, that even more general than that, and this will be just philosophical slides, as people say, but it refers to mathematical papers, which I call mediator design. What is mediator design? Again, I'll wave my hands to people that even have seen this. The idea is as follows. In general, this is a general way to model the world. A game is just an instance where they have many participants. that decide on some actions or strategy or whatever, and as a result, each one of them has its own payoff. It just, and in general, some interaction with many players or agents or protocols, we like to call them. So basically what we call a mediated game, it just say, you are given a game, the game is already there. We don't design new games, which is called mechanism design in game theory, but we have some ways to modify the game. And the question is, what kind of power or what kind of things can modify the game in order to lead to some desired behavior? And for me personally, it looks like that we go and see mediators everywhere. In some cases, we invent new mediators, like the one that we have seen now. In other cases, you already know about mediators, but you're not aware that these are mediators. And therefore, strange things happen. So I'll tell you what is this. So the example that we have seen in this talk is a new type of mediators that come from political science, whatever. We have voluntary commitments and their enforcement. So extensive form game is the game. We add to it voluntary commitments and enforcement. This creates a mediated game. And I told you that this simple construct already can help us at least in two-person games. But you all use other type of mediators. For example, this is another game that are not defined here, which is called the publisher's game. It's called the internet, where basically you go there, and there are various kind of publishers that like to show you their stuff. And everything can be defined formally, game theoretic, but there are people that try to do ordering on this. They are called mediators. They use it. What they use in order to do that, they use rankers or ranking functions. So the most famous mediator is this guy that basically tells you, I'm a great mediator. And they are great mediator. When you sit down at your computer and do a Google search, this is from their site, you are almost instantly presented a list of results from all over the web. When you perform a Google search, our program checks our index to determine the most relevant search results to be returned to you. So turns out that if you model these publishers as people that try to promote their sites and treat their information as a game, in fact, Google and Microsoft or whatever, they are a mediator that use something in probability that is called the probabilistic ranking principle. It gives you the most relevant information that I'll not define here formally. But what happened in this game is they are just a mediator. As a result to implementing this mediator, people publish various kinds of things. Think about news channels that compete with one another. And so if there is something which is more popular, I'll probably publish it more. So if you look at this as a mediator, you basically, and do analysis which is quite similar to what we've done before that, you'll find that in equilibrium of this game, you get things which are Pareto dominated. It's just the case that people try to compete with one another, and then this mediator doesn't work that fine. So turns out that if you now look at it as a problem of mediator design, you can replace this mediator by better mediators. So this is another talk for another birthday. This basically a big claim that's published in the information retrieval kind of thing, which is a big hit to a theorist, that tells us that the probability ranking principle is not optimal in adversarial retrieval settings. Basically, it doesn't say that Google or Microsoft doesn't do good work. It just says the data that you would have received that exists in the web would have been very different if the mediator device has been different. The fact that you are doing well with the data doesn't mean that you are doing well. You just implemented a mediator that will bring particular type of data that you are doing very well with it. So it's the same. I know this was a lot of philosophy. It just was saying that this kind of thing of looking at mediators everywhere and whether can you implement mediators that relate to Pareto efficiency goes beyond this particular talk. That's it. Thank you. Happy birthday again.